I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name's Mark and I've been married to Lisa for about 8 years now. We met young, got married pretty quickly, kind of a whirlwind romance, honestly. She always had this fiery attitude, a sharp tongue, and a way of twisting words until she got what she wanted. I loved her mostly, or at least I thought I did. She was beautiful, confident, and always knew how to push my buttons just right. Lately, things have been weird. She's been distant, irritated for no reason, snapping at me over minor things. At first I brushed it off, stress at work maybe. But then she started canceling plans, not returning my calls, and lying about where she was going. Little things, but enough to make me suspicious. I'd catch her in tiny lies, and her defensiveness only made me more annoyed. Still, I wanted to believe she was just stressed or busy, not cheating. The biggest sign came a couple of weeks ago. I was in the hospital battling COVID complications, pneumonia, breathing issues, the whole nightmare. I'd never felt so vulnerable in my life. Lisa was with me initially, but after a few days she started acting weird. She'd get calls and vanish for hours. She kept claiming it was work, then she'd get defensive whenever I pressed her. She started wearing new perfume, a strange scent I didn't recognize. She also became more snippy, like she didn't want to be there with me anymore. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I was lying there, hooked up to oxygen, struggling just to breathe, and she was out there, sneaking around. It made me furious just thinking about it. I was weak, vulnerable, and the one thing I needed was for her to be supportive. Instead, I felt like she was already planning her escape, or worse, having some secret affair. Then last week I got this gut instinct. I started noticing little things. Her phone was always face down. She'd hide it if I walked into the room. Her messages suddenly became more obscure, and she started locking her phone more often. It was like she was hiding something, and I hate that I even suspected her, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. I decided to do a little digging just to see if I could find anything concrete. One night I waited until she was asleep and I snuck into her phone. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but I felt like I had no choice. I found a string of texts, mostly between her and some guy named Jake. At first it looked innocent enough, flirty, yes, but nothing that screamed cheating, until I saw the last few messages. They were more intimate, more suggestive. She was talking about meeting up, how she couldn't wait to see him again, how she loved the thrill of sneaking around behind my back. My stomach dropped. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. I couldn't believe she'd been lying about everything, including her feelings for me. I'd been so focused on my health, fighting for breath, while she was out there fucking around with some guy. The fact that she had the nerve to lie, to pretend everything was fine, just made my blood boil. I wanted to confront her then and there, but I knew I had to plan my next move carefully. I needed to see if there was more to this, if this was just a fling or something more serious. The next day, I decided I'd catch her in the act if I could. I set up a hidden camera in the parking garage. Our garage, actually, because I'd noticed she'd been coming home late, acting secretive. I figured I'd catch her with her lover or whatever. I didn't want to believe it, but I needed proof. I wanted to see her with my own eyes, and I wanted to know what kind of person she really was. I was hurt, baffled, and oddly enough, kind of numb. I'd been betrayed by the one person I trusted most, and I didn't even know how to feel about it yet. Just waiting for the footage now, and I guess that's where my story really begins. I spent that night obsessively checking the footage from the hidden camera I'd installed in the parking garage. It felt like a sick, slow-motion nightmare. I kept telling myself not to jump to conclusions, but the footage told a different story. There she was, Lisa, coming into the garage around 10 p.m., calm and composed, her purse over her shoulder. I watched her walk to her car, and then, just as I expected, she met someone. It was Jake. That fucking guy from her phone. He was waiting by his car, leaning casually against the door, looking like he was just out for a casual chat. But then they started talking, and within seconds she was grabbing his arm, pulling him close, and they started kissing. Not just a quick peck. They were practically making out right there in the open. I saw her hands in his hair, him pulling her waist, and her lips pressed against his neck. My stomach twisted in knots. I couldn't breathe, my chest felt tight like someone was crushing it from the inside. I watched for what felt like forever, unable to move or look away. She was so brazen, so confident in her betrayal. Meanwhile, all I could think about was how I had been in that hospital bed, struggling just to breathe, while she was out using her energy on some other guy. It was like I was invisible to her, like I didn't matter anymore. And what hurt worse was knowing she had lied to my face every single time I asked where she was or what she was doing. She told me she loved me, but her actions told a different story. They stayed in the parking lot for what seemed like forever, just kissing, touching, whispering things I couldn't hear but could imagine. After a few minutes, she slipped into his car and he drove off, probably to some hotel or a secret rendezvous. She got into her own car a few seconds later and drove home. That's when I finally felt like I was going to be sick. I sat there stunned, staring at the screen, trying to process what I'd just seen. The woman I married, the woman I'd trusted with everything, was out there with him. Her betrayal cut so deep I felt numb. I kept replaying the footage in my head, feeling this weird mixture of anger, sadness, and disbelief. How could she do this to me? How could she lie so effortlessly? I was supposed to be her partner, her support, the guy who would stand by her no matter what. And here she was, the love of my life, cheating behind my back in broad daylight in a parking garage I paid for. The worst part was knowing she'd lied about everything. She claimed she was busy with work, that I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, but I knew better now. I knew I couldn't trust her. The image of her lips pressed against his neck haunted me. I felt like my world was shattering, but I also knew I had to confront her, face her, figure out what the hell I was going to do next. I stayed up all night, replaying that footage, trying to find some way to make sense of it. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, beautiful, confident, and knowing she was doing something she shouldn't be. I kept telling myself I was going to have a serious talk with her, but deep down I knew I needed a plan. I needed to decide if I was going to fight for this marriage or just cut ties and walk away. The betrayal was so raw, so real, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. And honestly, I didn't know if I could ever feel okay again. The moment I finally confronted her was like stepping into a storm I couldn't control. I remember feeling numb, yet furious at the same time. I didn't say much at first. I just waited until she got home from whatever bullshit she was doing. When she walked through the door, she looked irritated, like I was bothering her. That's when I knew I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told her I needed to talk. Her eyes narrowed, that bitchy smirk curling on her lips. "What's so important, Mark? Can't it wait?" she snapped, leaning against the doorframe. I kept my composure, mostly because I was stunned she was so brazen about everything. "No, Lisa, it can't wait. I saw you. I saw you with Jake in the parking garage." Her eyes widened for a second, then she rolled her eyes like I was some kind of paranoid psycho. "You're crazy. You're imagining things. That's not what you saw." She spun around, heading into the kitchen, acting like I was just some jealous fool over nothing, but I wasn't about to let her brush this off. I pulled out my phone and played the footage on the screen. Her face didn't change, but her tone got even bitchier. "Oh, please, that's just some stupid coincidence. You're overthinking it. Maybe I was just saying hi. Maybe I was helping him with something. You always jump to conclusions." Her voice dripped with contempt, like she was trying to gaslight me into doubting my own eyes. I wasn't buying it. I looked her dead in the eyes, feeling like I could explode. "Don't lie to me, Lisa. I saw how close you were. The way you were kissing him. You're cheating, aren't you?" I said, trying to keep my voice from cracking. That's when she finally lost her composure. "Cheating? Oh, give me a break, Mark. You're being dramatic. I was just saying goodbye. Maybe I'm tired of your damn accusations. Maybe I don't even want to be married to someone who's so paranoid all the time." Her voice rose and her eyes spat venom. I could see she was furious, angry that I dared to confront her like I was the one in the wrong. I half expected her to burst into tears or start screaming, but instead she just stared at me with pure disdain. That moment, I realized how cold and manipulative she could be. She was lying and she knew it. She was trying to turn it around, make me the bad guy. But I wasn't going to let her. I kept the footage on the screen, my fists clenched, trying to steady myself. This wasn't just an affair. It was the betrayal of everything I thought we had. Seeing her like that, so defensive, so unapologetic, made me feel a strange mix of heartbreak and rage. I wanted to shake her, scream at her, tell her she was a monster for doing this while I was sick. But I also felt the overwhelming sadness that I'd loved her, that I'd trusted her with my life, and she'd done this behind my back. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to decide what to do. I knew I couldn't keep pretending like nothing was wrong, but I also knew I couldn't just walk away without a plan. My mind kept racing. I thought about divorce, about confronting her again, about what I'd do if she admitted everything. Would I forgive her? Would I leave her? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't the fool in this story anymore. I saw her for what she was, bitchy, manipulative, and willing to cheat on me without a second thought. Whatever came next, I was prepared to face it. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I just kept replaying everything in my head. My trust was shattered, and I felt like I was living in some twisted nightmare. I kept thinking about how she lied, how she manipulated every moment to hide what she was doing. The image of her kissing Jake in that parking garage haunted me every time I closed my eyes. I was furious at her, but beneath the anger there was this deep, aching sadness. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down, so I kept my distance. I started packing some of my things, just in case I needed to leave. I wasn't sure if I was ready to file for divorce yet, but I knew I couldn't stay in that house and pretend everything was fine. The betrayal ran too deep. I also started planning my next move, trying to figure out how I was going to handle this mess. One night I decided I needed to talk to a friend, someone outside of all this who could give me some perspective. I called Mike, a guy I've known forever. I told him everything from the hospital to the footage to the confrontation. He listened quietly, then finally said, "Man, that's some serious shit. You gotta think about what you want. Do you even want to try fixing this, or is it over for you?" His words hit me hard. I knew I had to be honest with myself. The truth was, I felt completely betrayed, like my trust had been stomped into the ground. But part of me still loved her, or at least I thought I did. I kept telling myself maybe she was just confused, maybe she'd realize what she was losing. But deep down, I knew I couldn't keep pretending like I was okay with her cheating behind my back, especially after I'd fought to breathe in that hospital bed. That same night, I sat her down. I wanted to hear her explain herself, to see if she'd even try to justify what she'd done. I told her I knew everything, about Jake, the parking garage, the lies. Her face twisted with her usual bitchy smirk. "Look, Mark," she started, "I don't know what you expect me to say. Yeah, I cheated. Yeah, I was stupid, but you've been so distant lately. I needed someone. Don't act like I committed some unforgivable sin." Her words came out fast, like she was trying to minimize it all to make me see her side. I was stunned. I'd never heard her talk like that, so dismissive, so cold. It was like she was proud of what she did, like she'd convinced herself that she deserved to cheat because I wasn't paying enough attention. I looked at her, feeling the emptiness inside. Then I told her, "You lied to me. You betrayed everything we ever had. I thought we were working through the rough patches, but you were out there with him, kissing him, lying to my face. I don't think I can forgive that." My voice trembled. I was angry but also exhausted from holding all this inside. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and said, "You're overreacting. It's not a big deal. Maybe I just needed some excitement. Maybe I was lonely. And honestly, I don't see why you're making such a huge thing out of it." That's when I finally saw how much she didn't care, how little she valued what we had. She was selfish, manipulative, and completely indifferent to my feelings. That night I realized that whatever I thought we had was gone. She didn't even seem sorry, just annoyed that I caught her. I felt this overwhelming sense of betrayal, but also relief. Relief that I finally knew the truth, that I didn't have to guess anymore. I started thinking about moving out, about rebuilding my life without her. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I also knew I couldn't stay in a marriage where I was this betrayed and hurt. So I made a decision. I was going to leave her. Not immediately, at least not yet, but I was done pretending everything was okay. I needed time to think, to heal, and to figure out what came next. I didn't want her to think she'd won, that she could keep running over me. Because now I was angry, more than angry, I was determined. I deserved better than this. I'd been breathless for so long, physically and emotionally, and I finally realized I had to take back control of my own damn life. Over the next few days, I was a mess. I moved out of the bedroom, took my clothes, and stayed at a friend's place. I couldn't sleep, kept replaying the footage, the confrontations, her dismissive attitude. Every moment with her felt like a betrayal all over again. But at the same time, I felt a strange sense of clarity. Like I'd been blind for too long, and now, finally, I could see what I should have seen from the start. The biggest decision I made was to get a divorce. It felt like the only way to truly cut this toxicity out of my life. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I didn't want her to win. I was doing it because I deserved to be respected, to be loved without lies and sneers. I started talking to a lawyer, gathering evidence and planning how to proceed. The thought of filing papers was terrifying, but deep down I knew it was necessary. But before I took that step, I had one last conversation with her. I wanted closure, real closure. So I called her and asked her to meet me at our place. When she arrived, she looked annoyed, like I was bothering her again. I told her I was done pretending. I told her I knew about everything. Her lies, Jake, the parking lot, her dismissiveness. I told her I was leaving her, not just emotionally but legally. She scoffed again, brushing her hair back. "You're overreacting, Mark. You're just mad because I won't put up with your bullshit anymore. If you want to walk away because I had a little fun, go ahead, I don't care." Her voice was cold, but her eyes flashed with a kind of malicious amusement. She didn't seem sorry. She didn't seem to care that she'd shattered my trust. I felt this surge of anger and sadness. I told her she was selfish, that she didn't even try to hide how much she hated being married to me. I said I deserved better, that I'd rather be alone than in a marriage built on lies. That's when she finally snapped. Her bitchy, manipulative side came out in full force. "Whatever, Mark. You're just too weak to handle the truth. I don't care what you do. I'll be fine without you," she said bitterly. That's when I realized I'd been right all along. She didn't care about us. She cared about herself, about her freedom, about Jake. She was a narcissist, and I'd been fooling myself into thinking we had something real. That moment was a turning point. I told her I was going to file for divorce. She rolled her eyes, muttered some snide comment about how I'd regret losing her, but I just walked out. I felt like I was finally free from her manipulations, her lies, her contempt. It wasn't easy, but I knew I'd made the right choice. In the aftermath, I started focusing on myself. I went back to therapy, worked on my health, and tried to rebuild some semblance of normalcy. The betrayal still stung, but I was determined not to let it define me. I learned that people can be who they are, and sometimes love just isn't enough. I realized I had to put myself first, even if it meant walking away from someone I once cared about deeply. And honestly, it hurt like hell, but I felt stronger in a way I never had before. I was finally taking control, breathing again, both physically and emotionally. Looking back, I honestly don't know how I didn't see it sooner. How I let her manipulate me into thinking everything was fine while she was out there, doing God knows what with Jake. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever expected, but I've learned something valuable from all this. Trust is fragile, and it can shatter in an instant when you least expect it. Getting out of that marriage was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most necessary. I've come to realize that I deserve honesty and respect, not lies and sneers. Lisa's betrayal was a wake-up call, one that made me reevaluate what I want in life and who I want to surround myself with. I don't regret knowing the truth, no matter how painful it was. Ignorance might have been comforting in the moment, but it's a terrible comfort to live with forever. Since I left her, I've been focusing on rebuilding myself. I've cut out the toxic parts of my life, reconnected with old friends, and started really taking care of my health. The breathing issues I had from COVID still linger, but I've learned to manage them better. I'm not perfect, and this experience will stay with me forever, but I refuse to let it define me. I'm stronger now, more aware of the kind of person I want to be and the boundaries I need to set. The thing I want to say to anyone reading this who might be going through something similar: don't ignore the signs. Don't brush off your instincts or let someone manipulate you into believing everything's okay when it's not. It's okay to walk away, even if it hurts, even if you're scared. You deserve honesty and respect. Those aren't just words. They're the foundation of any real relationship. And as much as I wish I hadn't gone through this, I also know I wouldn't be who I am now without it. I've learned the hard way that sometimes the greatest act of strength is walking away from someone who doesn't value you. It's a brutal lesson, but it's also liberating. I finally feel like I can breathe again, truly breathe. And that, for me, is what matters most now.